Hey guys, it's me again, your favorite Ginger, with another video where I'm just gonna ramble for a while. Um, Sorry that I haven't been uploading consistently recently. I just started a new job, so I'm kind of adjusting to that and adjusting to having a set schedule like that and not having as much free time as I used to. So sorry if my posting schedule is kind of all over the place. It's just we're just gonna have to kind of deal with that for a while until I figure a good thing out for myself. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. Today I wanted to talk about stutters and how they suck and little pet peeves of mine about stutters. I'm just going to ramble about stutters for a couple minutes and you can choose to stay or go. So if you don't know what a stutter is, it's basically just a pause or a skip in speech. So I think when you think of stutters, you tend to typically think of someone repeating a certain sound a lot, and it's usually, I think the hardest sounds are like double letter sounds, like two T's, two D's in like a word, are things that I personally find are very hard to say. I also find H's can be hard to kind of pronounce at times. And in that situation with like something like an H, I find that the difficulty with those sounds is that it gets stuck in like my throat and I can't spit it out for some reason. And then for whatever reason, just when you're talking and you have a stutter, whether you know what you're gonna say or you don't know what you're gonna say, the sound just like repeats several times before you either give up on the word or you finally make it through. And that's a stutter. That is a stutter. As far as what causes stutters, it's kind of a nature-nurture situation where no one super 100% knows what causes it, but there's theories out there. And I researched some of these because in college, I had to write a paper for psychology class, and I decided this was a more interesting topic than what the rest of my group was writing on, so I went rogue and wrote a paper on stutters. So yeah, so it's kind of a nature and nurture kind of thing, so it's like half and half. No one really knows what causes it. It affects boys a little bit more than girls. And so that's fun for me. I get to be an anomaly. And one theory that I researched for this college paper a few moons ago was that basically the theory was surrounded around the idea that when your brain was developing, with all the different sections in it that do different things, the language part of the brain got put in like the wrong spot, basically. So because it's in the wrong spot, it takes you a little bit longer to like connections and all of the stuff like that to make it from like your brain to your mouth, and there's a little bit more like chance of interruptions. That's how I understood it when I was researching it. And this is just one theory. There's a lot of theories out there. A lot of them are wrong, a lot of them are dated. There's a lot of other ones that are probably a better explanation than that one, but that's just the one that when I was doing my personal research, that was one that I just kind of latched onto personally and I enjoyed. But yeah, now let's move on to the meat of this video, which is my experiences with a stutter. One thing that I feel like no one really realizes about stutters is that it's not just like this mental thing that happens inside you. I personally, when I'm stuttering, feel like a physical reaction in in my body. So it's not just like I'm talking and suddenly I'm stuttering. It's like, no, I'm talking and suddenly I'm feeling something physical and now I'm stuttering. uh, the best way to explain it is just that in, like, at the base of, like, my neck, I just feel this thing start to happen. Like, just this pressure. Well, not pressure even, just this weird feeling in, like, the base of my brain when I start to stutter. I do usually, when I was younger, I do remember my body just tensing up from it, but I think that was more of an anxiety reaction than something related directly to the stutter. But yeah, I usually think of like this pressure or like yeah, just like this pressure is something that I remember when I was younger in like my brain when I would stutter. That was that I always associate that when I'm stuttering really, really badly, I feel this weird pressure in like my body, and I couldn't really explain it well. I just knew it was there, and that was the feeling I associated with it. Another thing that I hate about like the kind of typical ideas that go along with stutters is just that whenever there's a character in media that has a stutter, they're usually portrayed as being very nervous, and they stutter because they're anxious or they're shy and all this stuff. And while there was a period in my life where I think that did apply, I didn't stutter because I was anxious and shy or I had a crush on someone, so I started stuttering, and when I finally got my crush, I stopped stuttering. That's not how it worked whatsoever. Yeah, I just find that it's more, as far as like things that cause me to stutter more, if I'm really like, if I feel like an emotion strongly, I kind of begin to stutter more, and it begins to kind of react more and more. For me personally, because I'm excited and I want to share something with like my friends, and so I'm trying to get it out faster, and my mouth can't always keep up because I'm excited. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel with the stutter. It can happen during any kind of strong emotions, and it shouldn't really be limited just to like someone who's like this really mousy person who's just anxious and nervous all the time and all that stuff. Like, there are people like that, but there's also people who are pretty confident and they're just like excitable and passionate, and they just stutter because their mouth can't keep up with how fast their brain's going. Which is, well, what it feels usually for me is just that I have so much I want to say, and I want to say it all at once to the world, and it gets jumbled up on its way coming out. So another thing, when my stutter, started, it was decided that I would go through speech therapy, which is like a good thing. It's a little tricky when you do it with kids, since I was like a little kid when I started going to speech therapy. Because with kids, there's a slight chance that they'll just suddenly get better and they'll start talking fine. So if you start doing speech therapy on a kid, and there's a chance that they'll just lose the stutter suddenly, speech therapy can actually hinder that more than help. So it is like a little bit of a tricky process, but in my experience, the speech therapists that I had, because I had several, were all very kind, very nice. I only have like good memories of them, and they never were mean to me or anything like that. However, I will say that I did develop some just emotional issues from having like a stutter, which I think is just a natural thing that can occur with people that have stutters, from what I've talked to other people online about and their experiences. So my speech therapists were very, very nice. I had one when I was younger that would just help me pronounce sounds correctly, because that was also part of my kind of impediment, was that there were some sounds that I didn't pronounce correctly. And as far as, I don't remember exactly what sounds they were, but I think they were listed out for me at one point, and it's like half of the sounds that the English language uses. So I definitely wasn't talking really good at that point. So I had one person that we would just focus on like sounds like R's, ST's, TH's, a bunch of sounds, and then another one where we would focus on just stutters. And for that, I remember doing a lot of tongue twisters for that speech therapist. Like, we'd play like board games, and I'd have to say tongue twisters to get better at not stuttering. So yeah, it was like helpful, but also not really helpful in the end, because I still stutter a little bit, but again, it doesn't happen too often. It only happens when I'm tired or emotional, which I think when you're emotional, you aren't always speaking eloquently anyway. So yeah, stutters do not make you a better person. I can assure you of that. Everything my stutter has kind of done in my life has just been terrible. It's made, you can argue that it made me stronger and someone who can stand up for herself, but you can also argue that it just caused a lot of long-term damage that I had to fight and get through on my own, just because it was a lot of internal stuff, and I was kind of in denial of it for a very long time. And so it just caused a lot of damage in my life that I had to kind of work through. Because when I was a little kid, and I noticed, and people would come and get me and take me away to speech therapy, away from like my friends and all and all that. It was kind of a realization moment where I had to kind of stop and be like, and just kind of realize I'm being taken away to focus on this thing with how I talk, and it just kind of put a lot of shame on me as a kid. And again, speech therapy was not the issue. I really want to make that clear in this video, that speech therapy isn't always like the issue. It just, I think I just, as like a kid, I just took it and I made it a bad thing in my brain. Just because I felt like it was something very kind of visible about me that I didn't like other people immediately knowing or seeing about me, of having like the stutter in the way I talk being the thing that they knew about me. Like, even as like a little kid, this was like in like primary school and in elementary school, when a lot of the stuff was kind of forming, and I didn't like that. The first thing people kind of picked up about me was that I stuttered, and it was a lot for me to deal with. So I did something kind of unhealthy, and I decided that I would just not talk unless I was spoken to. So that was rough. There was like, I think all through like elementary school and kind of middle school, a lot of that just formed into a lot of this internal kind of bullying that I did to myself, where I didn't really feel like I was a good person. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had anything worthy to say because I couldn't say it right. So what was the point in trying? And this formed at a really, really young age. Like, I had started thinking about this when I was like around 10. Within that kind of age group. And then I just carried it all the way through high school. Which is not healthy and not a good thing. So, yeah, it was a big struggle. And I hated it. Is kind of what I just kind of got through all that. I was also just always very quiet. I found a lot of solace in like books and storytelling because I thought it was just an escape from like having to talk and having to be stuck with myself, because the stutter wasn't like the only thing, but it was kind of like the thing that snowballed into something so big that it just was like the pebble that finally finally sunk the ship. Because I just ended up with a lot of self-hatred because of my stutter. And self-loathing, which is not healthy or good. So it was sucky, is basically what I'm trying to say. Stutters aren't fun, they aren't quirky, they aren't neat. So yeah, that's kind of all the deep stuff about stutters. I did in high school start to do some self-reflection and start to take steps to become more confident, to kind of start talking again, start trusting people, that they aren't gonna like hurt me or not like me because of my stutter, that I'm not as inept as I keep thinking I am. And now I am much more confident. Now you can't get me to shut up, as this channel proves. So yeah, that was like a rough time, and I'm sorry this video got like really, really deep really quickly, but stutters, they weren't fun. I do not recommend them whatsoever to anyone. But yeah, it seems like such a tiny thing, not being able to talk the way you do in like your head and like to yourself, and that you aren't able to kind of communicate that internal kind of way you speak externally to other people so they know how you actually kind of sound and the way you put words together. That's kind of like the roughest part of it. Is that people just don't understand the kind of things you have to do and go through in order to form like a sentence. Like in like middle school, I became like a walking thesaurus. Because whenever I ran into a word that I stuttered on, I would immediately either quickly try to restructure the sentence so I didn't have to use that word, or I would find a word that was similar and meant something kind of the same or like close to it, and I would use that word instead in the sentence. Even if it kind of changed the meaning a little bit, I would just use a substitute in that way, which has also led me to read like a lot of books as a kid. I was a book nerd. So yeah, now I am like a lot better with my stutter. I can handle it a bit better. I still don't, it's still something I'm a little bit sensitive on for sure. But in most cases, I'm fine with it. I'm pretty confident, and I don't care as much anymore. Um, However, the only fun thing about Stutters, the one thing that's cool about Stutters, because the rest of the emotional just roller coaster that you go through when you have a stutter sucks. The one good thing is that when you have, you know, your friend group and you all get close, it's a natural thing that people will start to pick up little verbal ticks from each other. And my friends picked up my stutter from me, so I got to spread it like a disease, and it was fun. Oh, I loved that so much. It still happens sometimes, and it's great. I love it. Yeah, it was very funny because in high school I would spread my stutter to my friends, and then my speaking would get better. So it was great. I felt so great. I felt like I had passed on the curse. But yeah, I just decided to make this video and share all this because there are a lot of different mental health issues, and I feel like stutters aren't really considered like a mental health thing, even though it's like your brain not working, so it should be in like the mental health. It's a weird thing. It's like a weird gray area in my experience, and maybe it's just me because it caused me so much, you know, mental damage and emotional distress. But it was something that affected like my mental health severely for many years, and I'll probably do a longer form video later kind of describing my recovery process from that. But it is damaging, and anyone out there with the stutter, I totally get it. Life is hard, but it does get better. You can get better, and even if you don't, you're still worthy. You still have important things to share to the world. It just means that you might have to take a couple different routes in order to get there. And yeah, it just means you have to work a little bit harder than everyone else, and that sucks. You shouldn't have to work harder, but it's just like that sometimes, and I'm really sorry. But we'll be in it we'll be in it together no matter what. So yeah, that's the video. I think that's the video. This was just a rambly, kind of chaotic mess of a video. I hope you like it. If you have any ideas for any future topics I should cover, put them in the comments down below. Or just let me know what you think of the video, because I want to improve and get better at making content for you guys on the good old YouTube platform. So yeah, I love you all. Be nice to each other. Stay safe with recent events. Stay safe out there. And yeah, have a great day. Bye.